Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Weekly Roundup. My name is Frankie.
And I'm Ryan from The Coffee Break.
And thanks, Coffee Break, for compiling all the interesting news for us every single week.
Remember to subscribe to stay smarter with The Coffee Break.
Like any other weeks, we have a lot of exciting news to share with you guys. I think one of the biggest news of the week is no other than the diesel subsidies that the government has finally announced to all Malaysians.
Correct. So I think a couple of Fridays ago, PM Anwar Ibrahim came out to have an announcement and said, okay, they're going to rationalize the diesel subsidies. It has been on the cards, I think, since start of the year. There's been talks. I think they've also very subtly tell the people that, hey, we're going to remove this, right?
No, but the thing is that the people were not so sure how the government is going to implement it.
Correct.
Whether it's going to be a blanket subsidy rationalization or is it going to be by stages, how the government is going to do it and things like that. So people were quite worried about how the government is going to implement this subsidy rationalization. But I think right now we have a clearer picture now. The government is going to start with diesel subsidy. Why do you think the government wants to start with diesel first?
I think one of the reasons why government is looking at diesel is there are not that many diesel users on the road. When they remove or rationalize the subsidy, it would immediately impact Malaysians like you and I. Like everyday Malaysians who have a diesel car will be impacted. Of course, when it comes to logistics, the commercial guys, there's a different set of impact as well to our logistics cost, but it's more of the rakyat who will be voting.
So it's more of a political move lah. So you don't make the rakyat so angry lah if you just go with the diesel subsidy rationalization
Not
first.
so drastic, and it also happened after the Kuala Lumpur by-election. So the timing is it's planned for, I guess, in some ways. So this diesel subsidies has been costing the government R1 billion a month.
Currently. So every vehicle that pumps diesel in Malaysia currently, the government would give a subsidy to all these car owners, and the government is spending R1 billion a month.
And on top of that, every day there are leakages of 4.5 million, according to Finance Minister to Amir Hamzah Azizan.
This leakages is not leakage of the
It's
diesel,
not,
right?
It's not literal
it is
leakage.
People who are not supposed to get the subsidy, they're enjoying the subsidies like any other Malaysian.
There were also like sale of this diesel to neighboring countries that we've seen before. I think they were selling to Thailand. You know that some of these vehicles you're supposed to only pump, because you can tell, right? If you pump petrol, for example, how much can you pump a car? How much you can only pump 50 liters, but they're pumping more than their capacities, and sometimes they pump at the next station, right? So these are some of the leakages, and that's 135 million a month. So imagine, right? 13.5% of the subsidies go to waste.
The government could have used the money to do other infrastructure
Build
projects, right?
schools, have more doctors, have more nurses, have better teachers, all those kind of things. And it's taxes paid by you and I, right? This subsidy goes to waste. So by removing this subsidy, it's a good start. And again, it's one of the Madani reformasi. It has been promised since 2022, and it's finally happening. And I look at this as a pilot. Like you said, it's a first step for the government to rationalize these subsidies and look at how would it go, how would people react.
Actually, before the announcement of this diesel subsidy thing, right? I think prior to that, the government come out with new initiative to ask all the commercial vehicles to sign up for a card kind of thing.
Correct, a fleet card. And 29,000 companies have actually signed up for the fleet card. And this can be obtained on KPDM's website, right? And it is actually part of the subsidized diesel control system. So I think this is also a measure by the government to ensure that the logistics.
I actually think that this whole scheme, of the card is a quite successful project. Because if my memory serves me right, I think there are about 50,000 registered companies. So to have 29,000 companies registered for this diesel fleet card without knowing a specific date that when the government is going to come out with this diesel subsidy, it's more than 50% of the company already registered.
Yeah.
I think then when the government comes up with this diesel subsidy thing, they would be quite confident to know how to target subsidies to the right people.
Yeah.
And it will also pressure those who haven't registered to quickly go and register. If not, then they won't be able to enjoy the subsidy.
Correct. And that's on companies, right? So just this week itself, the Ministry of Finance has also announced subsidy assistance program to individuals. Right?
So for you and me lah.
Yeah, correct. So these are for private owners of diesel vehicles and agriculture smallholders in Peninsular Malaysia. Okay, I think just to go back as well, right? The diesel subsidy will be only removed in stages. So Peninsular Malaysia is the first. So East Malaysia will still continue to enjoy subsidies. But now, I think it's relatively soon they're going to float the prices of diesel already. The unsubsidized diesel, right? So now you can apply to get a 200 monthly sum in financial assistance, and if you're part of the target audience. So who are eligible for this Budi Madani? Right. If you're Malaysian, you have JPJ registered diesel vehicle, except for luxury diesel vehicles lah, right? Of that is less than 10 years of age. You have a valid road tax. Your annual income has to be 100,000 and below, and this is for individuals and couples.
But how would the government know how much you earn annually, right?
So I think this also goes to your Form B lor, or whatever you submit to taxes lah.
Okay, so you need to apply. When you apply, I think they would ask for all these kind of documents.
Correct. So you have to prove. I think at that point in time when we talked about these subsidies, we thought, they're going to use PADU to sort of act as that platform to look at who to subsidize and who not to subsidize. But in fact, they're doing it the other way around, where you have to prove you want to get a subsidy, come and get it from me.
Then now I have a question. What was PADU for? Yeah, but that's a topic for another day, right?
The whole purpose of it is trying to have a good database. But isn't that what the Department of Statistics Malaysia is for, right? Because they collect the data, right? Anyway, okay, for the agriculture folks, you have to be a registered farmer or a smallholder with relevant agencies under the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security or the Ministry of Plantation and Commodities. And you need to demonstrate that you have annual turnover between 50,000 to 300,000 from farming or commodity production. Then you're eligible for this 200 ringgit. So you can already start applying for this. And applicants who have their applications approved before 3rd of June shall expect to receive their first payout by mid-June.
Oh, that's quite fast.
Yeah. So while these rationalization, they did not say when they will remove the subsidy. It's an inkling line in that sense, right? They might float the prices as soon as next week or so, because next week is already June, right? Or this week is June lah, by the time you're watching this. So as of this week, the unsubsidized price of diesel Euro is actually 3 ringgit and 33 cents per litre, compared to the subsidy of 2 ringgit and 15 cents. So this subsidized price is actually a 55% increase. Quite a huge jump, and if you to look at the 200 ringgit payout, it will make up for a difference of about 170 litres of diesel fuel each month. So yeah, it's a good move by the government to just pilot it out, and if we were to roll out for petrol, how would it look like? Then they can get a sense. How are people reacting to it? Are people really applying for the subsidy or not?
Yeah, but while diesel subsidy implementation, it's more straightforward because you have lesser vehicles running on diesel. When you want to implement it on, let's say, RON 95, I think the exercise would be a lot more complicated because most cars are petrol car.
Yep.
If you want people to go and register again, maybe that's when they want to activate PADU.
Yeah, maybe that's what PADU is for lah, in that sense.
So next story, something quite interesting happened in the stock market this week as well. So as we all know, end of May is the earnings season in Malaysia. So all the companies will have to report their earnings for the quarter, right? And this particular property company, Lagenda Properties, they also came out with their earnings release. And it was not bad at all, For the first quarter of 2024, right? Their net profit rose to 42.7 million ringgit from 39.3 million ringgit. And this improvement comes from strong sales momentum and growing construction progress from their various projects. So just to give you some context, right? Lagenda Properties is well known for affordable housing projects. How they do it is that they would go to not the prime areas like Klang Valley, but they would go further, like let's say Perak, and they would buy up cheap lands, and then they would build a lot of modular kind of houses, so that way they can keep the cost of production low, and then they will offer it at a very affordable price for people who need
Property lah.
a property, correct. So that's the modus operandi of this company, and it has been gaining a lot of investors' attention because there are very few companies that build this kind of affordable housings that address the mass issues of housing in Malaysia. So the products they launch, they can sell very well. So this kind of earnings, not very surprising also lah. We would expect them to do very well. But what's interesting is that after the result announcement, the share price actually limit down. A limit down means the share price dropped by 30% on a single day, and it triggered Bursa to halt the trading of the stock. When I saw the news and I saw the limit down, I was scratching my head like, what went wrong, right? And I couldn't really find the news. So I went to ask around. Then I have a friend who shared me this news article. When I saw the article, I was like, okay, I know where this is going, but it looks like a lot of speculation because the news was about this senior personnel was being remanded by MACC for allegedly
like converting a Malay reserve land to a non-Malay reserve land in Perak lah. That news actually surfaced on Tuesday afternoon. Right.
So many investors who didn't get that direct linkage, then they were not really aware of what's going on. But I suppose even without the name drop, some insiders would have already known that, the senior personnel is actually linked to Lagenda Property. And the very next day, they just sold off the shares. So that's what triggered the limit down on that particular day. Subsequently, the company also came out to say that, yes, one senior personnel has been remanded by MACC, but business as usual for them. Subsequently, the share price kind of recovered quite a bit. So that's the thing, right? When a company's senior personnel is being reminded by MACC, do you think it is going to affect the fundamentals of the business to the point that it has to lose 30% of its stock value?
I think the market's very reactive because if you look at listed code, they're not run by one key man. There's their board of directors, the CEOs, the COOs, and these guys will keep the company going. But maybe it's because of that one key person that keeps the moat of the company. Then maybe, if this person is arrested, what's going to happen to the company? So can you imagine, let's say, maybe we can't really name listed code, but if you think of the biggest listed codes in Malaysia and one of the top guys got arrested, right, then likely would be adverse reaction. That's why it rebounded next day. So I think it had a reaction on Wednesday. Then on Thursday, it said, hey, maybe we are. Again, it's always that kind of reaction with the investors. And I think in this kind of stock, easy to corner. Once you get the news, right, because you can short sell. And you can take positions that you otherwise really can't unless there are adverse news like this.
Correct, because fundamentally speaking, when a senior personnel of a company is being remanded for whatever reason or gone missing, right, for the matter, right, immediately there will be the next person to come and fill the vacancy and the business will keep running as usual. And on top of that, deals that have been done, like for example, if the company really used Malay reserve land and subdivided it and then turned it into a non-Malay reserve and therefore sell it to non-Malays, that would have been properly documented even though there are hanky-panky going on at the back.
Correct.
So as an end customer, they wouldn't say that, because you bought this land and it was previously Malay reserve, therefore now I need to take back the house, right? So whatever transaction that has been done after whatever hanky-panky that's done, those are legit business. Whatever revenue that is made will be the revenue of the company. So I think fundamentally speaking, there's nothing much change for Lagenda Properties. Maybe going forward, they may not be able to get cheap land anymore, and therefore the price of the houses may go up a little bit further and affected the demand for their products, but that's another story. The point here is that with the current momentum that people are still looking for affordable housing, and that has been their business model all along, I think they should be able to continue to sustain the business even without these key personnel in the company.
Yeah, I mean, the mode is different. It doesn't have to depend on this one person.
Yes.
Right? Unless, even if this person is fined by MACC or by the government, it's imposed on that senior personnel.
It's on the individual, it's not to the company.
And not to the company, right? Because MACC didn't say it was a company that made this conversion. It was a person, right?
Yeah, so maybe that's why the share price rebounded on the following day as well. Yeah.
So talk about a company that has done really well. Again, we have also said earlier that this is a jewel of probably everyone. Everyone probably wants to own this stock.
The stock of the year for planet Earth.
Yeah. Pretty much. Would you like to share which stock is it?
I think everyone would have guessed it that it is Nvidia, right? So again, it is the earnings season, so all companies will have to announce their result. Nvidia, I wouldn't say as expected because their result is so good that it actually beat expectation. So the sales jumped 262% in the first fiscal quarter to $26 billion. And it's an 18% gain from the previous quarter. So while we all think that, Nvidia is getting expensive and it is very hard for them to grow, but every quarter they continue to beat expectation. And every time, for example, this one, sales jumped over 200%, and that has shocked the market quite a bit.
I think in terms of profit, so we look at sales jump, but in terms of profit, it's almost 5 times from a year ago. Because of this kind of results, the share price actually shot up over 20% in the past 5 days alone.
But I think there's one more reason why the share price has done so well in the past 5 days. And that is in conjunction with Nvidia's earnings announcement. They also say that it is splitting its stocks 10 for 1. Okay, it gets a little bit technical here. Maybe you can help to explain what is the meaning of 10 for 1.
So every share that you own is going to become 10 shares.
Split.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that your value of the stock would multiply by 10 because at the end of the day, a share split will not increase the value of the company.
Yeah, the idea is it should remain the same, right? So like, let's say you have 1 million shares, worth 1 ringgit each.
Yeah.
If you're splitting, let's say 1 million to 10 million shares, which is in this case here, your shares would then be worth 10 cents each.
10 cents?
Correct.
Yeah.
It will get the valuation of that 1 million but at 10 cents each, right?
It's like a cake. No matter how you cut it, it is still a cake.
Yeah. It was still the weight of the cake is still the same.
But each slice of the cake will become smaller.
Yeah, and you can share with more people.
Correct.
Right?
So that's the point. But when a company does a share split like this, then more people are able to have a slice of the share at a much cheaper price. Not much cheaper price in terms of valuation, but much cheaper price in terms of the face value. Like you mentioned just now, if one share is $1, you split 10 for 1, then now each share becomes 10 cents. Then more people is able to fork out the 10 cents to own one share of the company.
Yeah, so I think at the time we are recording this, Nvidia is trading at $1,150 per share. And this is in US dollars, right? So when it splits, more and more people can buy. And it's a good way for the market. It's also more liquid for the share, right?
And therefore, I think a lot of traders are taking advantage of this catalyst and then they just buy up the shares, don't care about valuation, and therefore the share price has been sustaining above $1,000 after so many trading days.
It's also now the third most valuable company, right behind, I think, Microsoft and Apple. Right.
Yeah.
It may eventually overtake Apple, who knows?
So that's the thing, right? The US market has been enjoying a pretty good bull run and a lot of stocks have been increasing in the stock price. And that has resulted in many of the shares has gone up in value to like $500, $1,000 or some even like $2,000, $3,000. For a Malaysian like us to fork out with $500 to own, let's say, one Netflix shares, you have to times close to 5 ringgit. So it's 2,500 ringgit to own one share.
Yeah.
So that has deterred quite many investors away from the US market because of the bull run. So I think right now, one of the speculation of the US market is that since there are so many stocks has run up in terms of share prices and make it so expensive and unaffordable for people to buy, there may be a couple of companies that are thinking about splitting their shares like Nvidia.
Which ones?
The recent one that is reported one is called Chipotle.
Okay.
So they have recently announced a 50-for-1 stock split in March. And this has already gotten the board of directors approval. The next step is that they have to bring this to an EGM and get the shareholders approval. Then they can do the share split. But if you think about it, 50-for-1, it's very diluted,
Very liquid.
Very liquid. Yes,
because your ownership in the company remains the same.
Remains the same.
Right.
Yeah, but you own more shares and you don't need to sell one shares going forward. You can sell maybe 20 of the 50 shares that you have. Right? You can split your shares in that manner.
I think to give a bit of context, in Malaysia it's a bit different. It's 100 shares per lot,
Per
right?
lot. Yeah.
So if you want 1 ringgit share, you have to buy 100 ringgit worth. But in the US,
it's one share.
It's one share.
Yeah.
Right. If we spoke about this, I think also we talked about Berkshire Class A. I think it was
six figure one.
Six figure in US dollar for one share. Anyway, so what else? So Chipotle is one of them. I think you've also mentioned Netflix as well. Netflix also looking.
Yeah, so some of the rumors that I have been reading in the market is that stocks like Domino's Pizza, United Health Group, Thermo Fisher Scientific, Netflix, Eli Lilly, these kind of stocks, they have surpassed $500 per share. And perhaps the market will be speculating that perhaps they may think of a share split.
What do you think about share split? From your observation or from your experience, do they actually drive the share price up post-split lah? Because I've seen some instances where like the frenzy drove it up, then when the split comes, then it just drops lah, right?
Yeah.
What is your experience like?
Yes, that would be, I call it the first round of trading based on the catalyst. Is that people would buy it up, like what is happening to Nvidia right now. After the share split, okay, news is out, the exercise is done, let me take profit. So it will come down a bit. But eventually, it still goes back to the company fundamental, right?
Fair.
But because the value per share is much cheaper now, you would entice more investors to look at the company
more retail investors.
More retail investors, especially to look at the company, and that would drive ownership from retail investors to the company in the future. So maybe part of the plan is to get more retail investors to become their shareholders also lah. So anyways, I think that's all we have for today. We have one story on the fuel subsidy and we have 2 stories on stock related news.
If you don't like watching us but you enjoy listening to us, you can find us on Spotify. It's called
The Weekly Roundup by FAQ Show. I think that's all we have for this week. See you guys again next week.
Take care.